50 years ago today, 50 to the day, what were you doing? A lot of people in this room were getting ready to play a football game because 50 years ago today, on this day, Friday the 13th, 1963, final score, Dalhart 42, Guyman 14. Yeah. 1963, the greatest season of all time, 13 straight wins, #1 AA ranking in the state of Texas, district champions, by-districts, regional, quarterfinal champions. Then on a cold and miserable day in Vernon, it came to an end against the eventual state champion Rockwall. We're not going to talk about Rockwall much anymore today. No, because today we are here to celebrate that team, that season, and that era. Dalhart's decade of dominance, 1961 to 70, 91 wins, 19 losses, only 1 tie, 5 district titles, 3 by-district wins, 2 regional titles. And from 1963 to 67, according to Dave Campbell's Texas Football, out of 900 high schools playing football in the state of Texas, Dalhart had the best winning percentage for those 5 years. An unbelievable accomplishment. Woo! All right, I'm Kevin Lovell, but I probably have talked to everybody in this room many times over the last year, and if I don't know every face, I know every name. It's been my pleasure, along with fellow 1973 Dalhart High School graduate Joel Hogue. Joel, take one quick bow right here. We have organized this reunion, this celebration of our high school and our town, and our families and our way of life. So, we've got an incredible group of special guests, highlighted by Coach Stephen Young and the Dalhart Wolves. Where'd they go? They're serving. There they are. They'll be up here. The Wolves are actually serving. These guys have put the helmets on the table. Those are the game helmets. And are you guys waiting to serve? All right, it's coming shortly. It's coming shortly. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, a memorial to the 63 players that are no longer, and coaches that are no longer with us. And we're going to start with, we actually have a pastor in our ranks that was on the 63 team. He quarterbacked the Lobos to a 10-0 record as a sophomore in 61. He converted to defense. Doug Etheridge and company put him down as they put him as a down lineman, a 132-pound down lineman. And then in the semis versus that team from down around Dallas, when Ronnie McClendon was injured, backup Pete Scardella was out, like the Texas A&M 12th man, he came into the game as a quarterback. And you know what? He did a wonderful job. His father, like my father, a Dalhart businessman, he found his calling as a minister in Kansas, Albuquerque, Wichita Falls, Texarkana, and now Amarillo, pastor at the Southwest Foursquare Church. He's married to former Dalhart High School twirler Sherry for 48 years. Let's all welcome Pastor Burton McElroy.
Well, hey guys, we are gathered together to remember and yes, celebrate the past and present and the future. All of us gray hairs in here, we need to remember there is a future. And if I had a red flag, I'd throw it at you, Coach, but I don't have one. Thanks to Kevin and Joel, we're here to enjoy the past and pass on our heritage. I want us to take a moment to remember those who have gone on before us to their greatest reward of heaven. Remember Superintendent Dean Skiles? How about Coach Sherwood? You know, remarkable man, and Jackie, thank you for being here with us today. Coach Artie Stewart went on back to his farming heritage after coaching, and a great individual. Jack Probst was on our coaching staff back in that year, and he went on to great success as a coach as well. Some of the players that are along with us, Carl McEnroe. Carl followed me in ministry. Actually, I wanted to follow him because he's a year older. So, and David Ryherd is a graduate and a player that we have memorized memorialize every year as the class of '65. Gerald Mitchell, Jimmy Chandler, Tommy Presley, and oh yes, that we got into a little interesting trying to figure out whether he's actually a player or not, but Bobby Stanley. I want us to remember Bobby because he died in Vietnam. I also want us to remember our teammates that are unable to be here today because they're ill, like Roy Weatherford and Pat Gallagher. So let's pause for a moment of silence for those. Thank you, Coach Etheridge, Coach Rickenberg, Jackie, and our beloved principal, Crandall Young, for being with us, and a special thanks and a welcome to our current head coach, Stephen Young. I remember when he was just an ornery little kid tugging at us when we was trying to referee. He said, he told me a minute ago he don't like referees, so I'm in trouble. All right, let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to gather here today on this joyous occasion. Bless this happy reunion in which we ask that you impart your blessings upon each of us. And Lord, I implore that you bestow your blessing of healing on Roy and Pat this day. Thank you for guiding us through all the years of our existence and leading us to our destiny that you've set for us. May we have the courage to continue to follow no matter what. We want and need your approval for all that happens this day, and we thank you for this meal that we're about to partake of, and we ask that you bless those who've prepared it for us. In the mighty, powerful, and blessed name of Jesus, amen.
Thank you, Bert. Bart, do you need some help? Joel's there. Okay. Hey, I tell you what, it couldn't be complete, though. We have a Pledge of Allegiance. We're all going to stand. We're going to salute our flag with the Texas flag next to us. Hand over heart. 1, 2, 3. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have Mary Rowell and Doc Rowell. Doc Rowell, the head coach of the Dalhart Wolves, 69-74. Mary Rowell, one of the greatest language arts teachers of all time. And then we have Phil Perkle and his wife, Missy. Ladies and gentlemen, Phil Perkle is the man, and I will talk some more about him, but I tell you what, we had a lot of wonderful sponsors, but United Supermarkets, of which he's affiliated, and then the tempo and what he meant to the 63 team, more than anybody else, and probably Coach Etheridge and maybe a couple of, but they're the reason we're here. Phil, thank you. And then we've got, when I started this reunion a year ago, all the work and phone calls and all, I didn't know if this man was dead or alive. And Doug Etheridge is very much alive. He looks great, and we are so glad to have you. Bless your heart. And this is Richie Edwards. He was a high school football star with Doug, and Richie was born in Dalhart, Texas.
Yes.
Yes. And J.C. Rickenberg. J.C., we're so happy to have you and your wife, Dottie, and J.C. has a history of his own. We'll touch on that a little bit later. This all came together. This is a photocopy of the 1963 Dalhart Wolves playoff roster. I got a photocopy of this thing. It's all, you know, it's not even a real one. I mean, this was like a copy of a copy. And that's what I started with a year ago, trying to find all these guys. And you know, some knew others and others knew others. And email, phone calls, just an unbelievable project to get everybody together, and all well worth it. Of course, the teammates are good friends with each other, but you know, they'll know 2 or 3. You don't know everybody. But we found these guys, and then it's a tribute to Joel Hogue, because we kind of worked in tandem, but at the same time we each had our own ideas. And my thought was, well, it's 50th anniversary. It's 1963 Wolves. What are we doing? Man, we got to have this reunion. And Joel said, hold on. We had a whole 10 years at least, if not longer, of dominance, of excellence of Dalhart football. And you look, sure enough, you start in 61 and you go to 70, and you could still carry it a little further forward. Even the 60 team, Coach Etheridge was telling me, they wish they were part of it. Sorry, 4-5-1 didn't get it done, but they were still great Wolves. It had to start somewhere, had to end somewhere. And the 1970 team was a team every bit as good as any of the early 60s teams. And we all know about the officials that didn't know what they were doing in Phillips. But but where did this all really start? It started with my dad, who would take me to he was a Lovell Chevrolet owner. Joel's father was the publisher of the Dalhart Texan. So Joel would go as dad to the football games in that era. My dad would take me to the football games. He had a friend named Joe Butler, and they'd been in a big Cadillac, and I'd have to sit in the back seat. Joe smoked cigars, my dad smoked cigarettes. I hated it. I couldn't stand it. I would crack the window and stick my head up like a dog to go to Perryton or Spearman or somewhere. That's how much I love the Wolves, because I couldn't stand had to be fumigated after you got out of there. But that got me to the football game. So and then Joel and I broke my ankle in the 8th grade. Tommy Sherrill was my coach. He's in here somewhere. And I quit football. I was a sissy. I played golf. I played basketball. Joel lasted a year or two longer. He quit. 9th, 10th grade, Joel? Yeah. So, whatever. But we were still football geeks in the sense that we loved the Wolves. We loved the fight song, the school song. We loved purple and gold. We loved everything about Dalhart. And we just, in the 70s, when we were in college, we came home, we'd mow lawns, he'd work at the Texan or whatever, and we went at night. We started researching the Dalhart Texan archives, and we wrote the unofficial history of Dalhart High School football from starting in 1919 to 1975 when we did it. So we knew all the nuances, the teams and everything, and through the years we've just followed it. 10 years ago I wrote a letter to the high school principal and to the Chamber of Commerce and said, why don't you get the 40th reunion of the 1963 Wolves going? And didn't hear anything. Not that it wasn't, nobody was saying it wasn't important, but somebody's got to do the work. You got to organize this thing, and they had other issues, other agenda items. So now you flash forward another 9 years. Last year, as has been my calling, I come up to, I live in El Paso, but I come up to Amarillo. I usually see a Tech game, and I want to go see the Wolves play, usually a home game. Hopefully it's the same weekend. We're coming to Dalhart, Joel and I. I said, look, it's now or never. We're 1 year out, so we got in touch with the superintendent at that time, David Foote, Mayor Kevin Cadell, School Board President Jeff Lloyd, none of whom are in their present positions anymore. Just complicates matters. They're all big supporters and still here, but we had to educate a new generation, the superintendent and principal and everything, but it made it all the more fun. We had Dionne Young, the coach's wife there, Peter Priestley, Dalhart businessman. John David was along, my good friend from Amarillo, and we put this thing together. We got the blessing. And after that, we got all kinds of support from a lot of people in the last year, of which we could not have done it. Among those supporters were the new superintendent, John Massey, and Principal Derek Hollingsworth. If you guys could stand up and say hi. These are new superintendent, new principal of Dalhart Schools. Thank you. And we have, and all the guys are going to get these, but if one of you or either one of you, Superintendent Massey, could you come up? All of the 63 teams going to get this beautiful, and we're going to present it tonight. So we got a couple of plaques this afternoon. But they have a nice trophy case at the high school, and you need to add one more, and it says 1963 Dalhart Wolves, #1 ranked, 13-1. Texas AA State semifinals. Put it in the trophy case. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Now, we had some great sponsors, as I talked about, and I'd like these guys to come up here and line up, and Madonna Hogue is going to help us out. And what we're going to give, the sponsors are going to get their plaques now for their support. All of the 63 team and the others that we're recognizing, the VIPs from the Decade of Dominance, all of them are going to get a Dalhart Wolves cap courtesy of Stephen Young and the Dalhart Wolves. And the cap, it's very important that you wear it, certainly tonight at the game. We'll kind of get together, we'll sit as best we can together, and everybody will be recognized the purple cap. You're going to get that. You're going to get a supplement from the Dalhart Texan. Joel and I had worked so closely with Thomas Lott and Susan Clay and everybody associated with the Texan. And then, so the sponsors, if you would please come up here. These guys couldn't have done it without them, because I tell you what, it takes a lot of effort to put something like this together. So let's start with Peter Priestley, Dalhart Abstract. Peter, come on up right here. Way to go, Peter. Peter was the 1972 star running back. I grew up playing in his yard, and then of course I quit football, but he kept playing. Peter, light up down here. It'll be easier. We don't want anybody falling down. We're starting with you. And then we've got Kevin Cadell. Kevin, are you out there? Kevin was former mayor. Furniture Fashions of El Paso. Come on up, Kevin. Dyke Rogers could not be here today. Dyke, thank you for your support for Frontier Fuel. Representing Frontier Fuel is Troy Crawford. Troy, if you could come up, please. And then Jeff Lloyd. Jeff's the one collecting the money. Come on, Jeff. Jeff is First National Bank in Paradigm. And then Bill Cunningham, Dalhart Federal. I know I saw Bill earlier. There you are, right there. Come on over, Bill. Thank you very much, Bill. And another sponsor is Richard Pinner of Pinner Wire and Cable out of Garland. You wonder, well, what's a Garland? Well, Richard is 1963 Wolves, and he says, how can I help? I said, well, open your checkbook. So, Richard, come on up. Thank you very much. Hey, this guy, I've got to know everybody. You see him in the shorts. He's lived 6 months in Dallas-Fort Worth area and 6 months in Hawaii. Dun, 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 dun. And we have Kimberly McCleskey Dryden, NCW Insurance. Kimberly, now notice her name before marriage, McCleskey. Part of the McCleskey clan. Her father was one of three brothers that were among the greatest Dalhart Wolves of all time. So, Kim, thank you so much for your help. And Phil Perkle. Phil, you've got to go down for the moment. Or you hand it to Phil here. Andy, you want Andy Hewlett? Andy Hewlett of United Supermarkets in Dalhart, representing Phil Perkle. And so now we got everybody up here. If we could, everybody's got their cap. You get your supplement on your way out. And let's give a great hand for all of the sponsors for the Decade of Dominance. All right, we also had a lot of volunteers, people in town. I just want to give these names as quickly as I can, but that does not mean that they spent a small amount of time. They spent a ton of time on this. Among them, Robin Scott, Nick Olson with the XIT Museum. Robin also has a newsletter in town, and they were instrumental. There's an exhibit, to my understanding. I haven't had a chance to get over there yet, at the XIT Museum. So go by and say hi. We've had several things donated there. They've been great about organizing. Warren Slaughter, Joan Schubert, and Nicole from Secretel. They've been very much involved in this process. They're the ones who did all the trophies and a lot of the organization. Dalhart Band Boosters, Denise Baumert, Cindy McMurray, and Donna McGinnis. They were all instrumental as well. Now, save a little room, because tonight, everybody that's going to the roundtable discussion at 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock at the high school, and that's going to be great football stories. We have the band boosters, and as it turns out, they're exclusively preparing food for our group. So is anybody in this room, and if there's but we really need to support them. It's only $8. It is goes straight to the band boosters. If you're not hungry, give a little donation. So that'll be like from 5 to 6, 6:15, maybe 6:30 at the high school. Band director Jim Pasley's been helpful. Stephen Young's wife Dion as well. Lynn Ballou made the banner, beautiful banner, thanks to him. And then from the Texan again, Susan Hogue, Thomas Lott, and all the others to help put together what will be an award-winning special section. I guarantee it's just beautiful the way they laid it out. Then Don Cantrell's in the room. Anybody hadn't seen it? Accent West out of Amarillo, and of course the High Plains. A wonderful, incredible spread on the Dalhart Wolves. And Don, where are you? You deserve a quick round of applause. Don Kent. Now, a word about this. We're giving one to each of our returning VIPs. We have some more, but they're going to be donations. We're going to put them at the front door when you're leaving. We kind of ask you to limit maybe one per family, and then we'll have some baskets or whatever if you could donate. And again, the money is going to the scholarship fund for Dalhart High School, and I'll touch more on that later. And then also, John Mark Ballou, if you haven't seen it, Amarillo paper today, just a spectacular article about the Dalhart Wolves, the Dalhart's Golden Wolves return for homecoming. Great picture of the coaches, Glenn Robertson's picture there. So, I've worked it hard because I am in the media, manager of a TV station in El Paso, I think I said, but I've, organized, I've got some of the TV stations from Amarillo coming up shooting the game tonight to get on highlights. So, working with the media, getting you guys as much attention as you can possibly receive. Okay, also got, just so you know, this is Chris Swan and Brenda Swan, and they are from El Paso. They were the ones recording and getting everything organized for your DVDs. Thank you very much for coming up. Now, you got to remember, I'm their boss, so they had no choice. It's a long, lonely road from El Paso up here, right through Narragansett. And let's see, we have, where'd I put it? We had one volunteer that was just extraordinary. I'm pretty sure he's in the room. I hadn't had a chance to meet him, although we've corresponded a lot. And he is the 1968 Fighting Heart Award winner for the Dalhart Wolves. And he worked with Marcia Cunningham Sneed, Jan Johnson Chandler, and others. He came up with the idea for a great reception at 2 o'clock at St. Anthony's Catholic Church for all of the wives of the coaches and players and any of the women in this room. You're all welcome over there. You got to go over there at 2 o'clock. And so we have a Decade of Dominance Fighting Heart Award 68 reunion volunteer to Carl Woods. Carl, are you out there? Surely you are. Come on over, Carl. Carl didn't know he was getting this, but Carl has been so helpful in tracking down the trophies and getting the Fighting Heart Award trophies. Joel, would you give that to Carl, please? St. James Episcopal. Sorry. Episcopal. Yeah, I even wrote it down. St. James Episcopal. I apologize. Thanks a lot, Carl. Appreciate it. Okay, in organizing the reunion, we had to, and of course Joel and I have always looked at this, at the official records of Dalhart High School coaches. And I mean, you talk about, this is it. I mean, we have the #2 winner of all time, most wins, 41 wins, is Greg Sherwood. Bless his heart. May he rest in peace. Then we have a tie. We have a tie for the 3rd most wins in school history. Doug Etheridge, Doc Rowell, 38 wins. And then we have the all-time most wins ever by a Dalhart High School coach. He played for the Wolves. I believe he's the first head coach that we've ever had who played for the Wolves, or you maybe have to go way back to find another one. He was a 2-time All-District running back for Dalhart, graduated from Tech. He coached with Dalhart quarterback, another member of the Decade of Dominance, Steve Parr, who's coach at Paladuro now. But he coached at Slayton, Plainview, Paladuro. He's married to Dion. He has 2 sons, one in the Marines, one is a coach at Paladuro. He's carried on many of the great Dalhart traditions. And since 2006, he's guided Dalhart to the playoffs every year, facing bigger enrollments, towns that have a lot more students than the Dalhart High School has. So, and the Wolves this year, they're more than doing their part. They're 2-0. So, this makes him the winningest coach in Dalhart High School history with 52 wins, 28 defeats. Looking for 53 tonight, boys. Let's all welcome, with a special trophy, a plaque for Stephen Young. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Say a word or two.
Say a word. Honor that I wasn't quite expecting. If you look around at all these young men. If you look at the helmet that is on your table, you'll notice that it's quite a bit of different helmet than what you guys played with. You know, he said something about officials. If you've ever seen me coach or anything, I'm probably not the best fan of officials. My dad was an official, and I didn't even like him when he was an official. But, you know, these two that have set this is a great honor. There's no more what I can say. What y'all did in, you know, from 60 to 70, you know, we got here in 2006, and our goal was, and still is, to be a team of the decade also. And, you know, we're not anywhere close to where you guys are, but we're going to try to finish it. And if I had anything to say, Ms. Sherwood and you guys in 1963, and then when Coach Sherwood was here, our offense is basically still run out of that 1963 stuff.
Yeah.
There's a young man that has passed away. His name is Ed Moore, and Ms. Sherwood would know who I'm talking about. That defense that he established way back then, that coach was Coach Sherwood, is the same defense that we run today.
Wow.
So I can't say enough. And then Steve Parr, who I consider my mentor, who just called me a minute ago and said he apologized that he could not be here. He coaches at Paladura. He's got a game on Saturday, and he has taught me a lot. And he's a Dalhart boy. And if you can get people to come back to Dalhart that grew up in this era and the era that I grew up, it's a lot about Dalhart, and there's great people here. I want to thank you for this, and thank you for what all y'all done for me. Thank you very much.
Tell you what, those guys, Dalhart Wolves, they play defense and they run the ball. That's the way. All this spread offense, it's just not right. It doesn't look right. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you all for the tradition of excellence that in the way you play football then and now. Coach Young, one other, I'd asked him and the Dalhart staff, they've had incredible success in all the sports. Among them, volleyball, they've been in the playoffs 7 straight years. They've had state qualifiers in cross country. Girls basketball, they've been in the playoffs since Stephen has been the athletic director. The boys basketball team has been 4 years in the playoffs. 1 year, they've been district champion once, and they were regional semifinalists, which is, they were Sweet 16 in the state in basketball 1 year. In track, softball, golf, tennis, powerlifting, Dalhart's had a great, great tradition of sports success and some other sports as well in individuals. So congratulations. And let's give a little hand real quick to all these Dalhart Wolves and everything they did, even served the plates, huh? Woo! Okay, I'm going to be quick about this. I do talk fast, but because I love football history, got to give you a tiny bit of football history leading up to the 60s, and Joel's going to take over. Dalhart started playing football in 1919. In 1926, we beat Boise City 104-0. However, 4 years earlier, in 1922, Clayton beat us 69-0. That's our worst loss in history. Dalhart in 1936, in the homecoming game, the homecoming queen kicked off. Literally kicked off. The other team, they were good sports about it, they just fell on the ball. And that's the truth. If we're talking history in Dalhart, I know it's before our time, but in 1930 and 31, Dalhart had unbelievable football. Now this was at the tail end of all the rains and the wheat crop, and the Panhandle was booming and Dalhart was booming. It was right after the stock market crash in '29 and the Great Depression, and right before the Dust Bowl. But in 30 and 31, players like Levi Reynolds and Charlie Mitchell, Dalhart finished the regular season unbeaten. They scored 310 points and gave up 0. And in the regional finals, which is as far as you could go in that era, they lost to Slayton 7-0. That 1930 team was the last district champion till Doug Etheridge and Company in 1961 won district. So That clap, that applause is as much for that 30 team as it is for the 1961 and the Decade of Dominance teams. Dalhart had a great team in 31 as well. In 1940, Coach R.M. Thompson, after 0-6 start, was literally, that's what the Texan reported, run out of town. And then in the World War II years, Dalhart was terrible. In 1941, I remember, I used to play golf with this guy. A lot of people in this room know Odell Walker. Well, they didn't have a coach. Odell took over as the coach. They didn't have a bus. Odell's a funeral director. He loaned them the hearse. The team traveled in a hearse to the football games, en route to a 1-9 season. In 1949, Dalhart beat eventual state champion Littlefield. Great achievement. In the 1950s, John Nickel played for the Wolves, went on to all Southwest Conference frame at TCU. Then in 58 and 59, tide started to turn. Dalhart beat Stinnett with Donnie Anderson. Donnie Anderson, one of the great NFL players of all time, Texas Tech Red Raider. The Wolves beat him. And in 59 as well, Jack McCleskey. This would have been the uncle, I guess, of Kim, because her dad was Joe Mack. I believe I got that right. He carried the ball 21 straight times in one drive. Scored a touchdown to beat Canyon. He had 56 rushes in the same game for the Dalhart Wolves. It still ranks among the top in the history of Texas high school football. You'll find him in the record book. Burr Henderson was the coach then, and he hired an assistant named Doug Etheridge. Doug Etheridge came over from a town where he'd started out, Phillips. I guess he learned a few things at Phillips. but he took that knowledge. And then for some reason, Phillips they weren't even part of our district in the early 60s, so we didn't get the pleasure of beating them in the early 60s. But this takes us to the 60s. It's my pleasure to introduce the well, let me put it this way. In 1973, I was the District 1AA golf medalist runner-up. The district medalist champion of the 1963 Dalhart Wolves golf team. He beat me. I've never forgiven him, Joel Hope.
I honestly do not know how that happened. There were at least 2 or 3 other guys that were better than me, but somehow it all came together. Listen, Kevin has given me 5 minutes to give you the history of the 1960s, so I have to move quickly, okay?
Move closer.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me better now? Okay. All right. I will tell you, I graduated from Texas Tech in the mid-'70s with a degree in history, but I never envisioned that my area of expertise would be in Dalhart High School football. But that's what it has turned out to be, particularly when you consider that the only time I got onto the football field in high school was as a part of Jack King's marching band. So I know, I don't mean to offend anybody in here. I know we've got teachers in here, and I was a teacher myself, but as they say, those who can do, those who can't teach. So there I was. But anyway, I've only got about 4 minutes to get this all in. So I thought about how can I do this very succinctly, and I thought, well, you can look at this by the numbers. And when you look at the numbers, you find that Dalhart played 111 football games in the 1960s, which includes the 1970 season. They won 91 of those games. They lost 19, and they tied 1. So on average, they won 9 games and lost 2 games every year for a decade. And that's pretty incredible achievement. If you look at it another way, if you look at it based on the letters and the words that certain of those letters form, then you get a little different perspective when you think of the words Denver City, Rockwall, Phillips, and Iowa Park. And I can see your heads nodding out there. You know what I'm talking about. Those were the teams. Those were the teams that defined the Dalhart Wolves. Sometimes they reflected great success and achievement because of a terrific victory won. Other times they reflected the fact that just getting to the point of being able to play those teams was reflective of a tremendous achievement. We're going to show you some highlights here in just a little bit, but this all got kind of started with the 1961 season. Dalhart faced the Denver City Mustangs. Denver City was the #1 ranked team in the state. They had won the state championship in 1960. They were possessors of a 26-game winning streak when Dalhart played them in the regional round of the playoffs. No one gave Dalhart a chance, but somehow, some way, the Wolves hung with the Mustangs during the first half of that game. Dalhart was behind 8-7 at the end of the half, and then the opening kickoff of the third quarter, Denver City was clearly going to take control of the game. They had an outstanding running back named Pat Hubbard who returned a kickoff 72 yards. And Chester Bird, is Chester in the audience with us? I don't know if he made it or not. Chester Bird ran him out, down on the sidelines, knocked him out of bounds at the 21-yard line, which was a good thing because ultimately Dalhart rose up with a tremendous goal line stand, stopped them on the 1-yard line. One play later, they moved it out to the 3-yard line, and then Tommy Ledbetter broke free on a 97-yard touchdown run that completely opened the game wide up. Tommy, you want to stand up for us, please? And you're going to see that play replayed here in fairly short order. So Dalhart went on to win that game 29-8. The following season, those two teams met again in the regional round of the playoffs. But at first, I should add, does anybody remember what our band played at the end of that game? The old gray mare, she ain't what she used to be, right? Then in 1962, we faced them again, and this time it was another terrific battle. But it came down toward the end of the game. Dalhart set up for a 45-yard field goal to try to take the lead at the end of the game. Dwight Clifton, who had a terrific leg. This is back in the old days when you just kicked head on. There was none of this soccer-style stuff they do today. He kicked the field goal. It sails up in the stands. I was in the 2nd grade at the time, and I still have this vision in my mind, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but there were 2 officials on the field, one that went like this and the other one that went like this. They conferred and determined that the field goal was no good, that it was just wide to the left. I did not speak to these gentlemen. Kevin tells me he spoke to Bill Cunningham and to Dwight Clifton, the holder and the kicker, and it was wide left. So we lost that game 23-21, and their band played Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf? That was Denver City. We've already agreed we're not going to talk about Rockwall. We're going to talk about the 13-0 season leading up to the Rockwall game. That leads us to Phillips. They moved into our district in 1964. We played Phillips 7 times during this time frame we're talking about and won 2 games. They always stood in our way in terms of being able to get into the playoffs. They only took 1 team back in those days. The toughest game I think I have ever seen or experienced, and if you read the special section and some of the stories that Kevin and I wrote for that special section, that 1970 game between Dalhart and Phillips, Doc Rao will well remember that, Jack Boston will well remember that, was the cruelest loss of all, when some officiating mistakes and doing the simple measurement on a first down gave Phillips an extra set of downs. Last play of the game, the Phillips quarterback throws the ball toward the end zone in a desperation attempt. The ball gets batted up in the air by 5'7" Sid Grantham. It goes up into the air, into the end zone, and my recollection is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, my recollection is the Phillips receiver was laying flat on his back in the end zone and caught the ball. Ball game over. And that brought the decade of dominance to an end right there. Iowa Park, that's another team we probably want to agree we don't want to talk about a whole lot. Iowa Park was just so darn good. When we faced them in 1969, we were just kind of in the way as they marched to a state championship. Dalhart scored more points against Iowa Park against any other team that year. Iowa Park won the state championship. The following year, they also made it to the state championship and ended up tying the team they played that year, so they were co-champions in 70. So anyway, it was a terrific run of 10 years, of which everybody in this room who was associated with that should be commended. I want, though, before I leave here, to say a special thing about Stephen Young and the special things they've got going on in Dalhart right now. You need to realize and understand, if you don't, Dalhart competes in their district and all the other teams in Class 3A in the state that are regularly 2 times or 3 times larger than they are in student body. So for them to have had the success they have had competing against such larger schools is nothing short of incredible as far as I'm concerned. So that's it, 10 years in a flash. I was going to try to get this certified for some advanced placement credit through Amarillo College. You get 3 hours on this, so there you go.
Thanks, Joel. Joel Hug, my lifelong friend. You know, Joel's an attorney. They bill by the hour. And, you know, they don't know how long 5 minutes is, but that's all right. All right. Tell you what, we are blessed to have some of the greatest coaches in the history of high school football, Texas or otherwise. And we're going to start with the man who really got it, who established Dalhart, the football power that it is. He was born in Sundown, quarterbacked at Midwestern University in Wichita Falls, was a military veteran. Then he took an assistant coaching job of all places, working for Chesty, Walker, and Phillips. Well, that got him ready because L.G. Henderson, the Dalhart coach at the time, convinced him to come to Dalhart. 2 years, an assistant, and then Superintendent Dean Skiles promoted him to head coach. 4-5-1 the first year. Jack McCleskey got hurt. He's the guy that had all those rushes. But he hired a staff, a phenomenal staff. He coached up the Wolves, and we've talked about from 61 to 63, Dalhart had 3 district titles, state semifinals, go on and on. Just an incredible run. He left Dalhart after that season, went to Monahans, took Monahans to the state semifinals. He went to Hobbs, New Mexico. Hobbs is a basketball school. Hobbs, New Mexico won the state championship under this man. He went to Port Arthur for a year, then went to Port Neches Groves, 4A football, highest level of Texas football at that time. And with Richie, this guy right here, quarterback, in 1965, they won the 4A state title, 20-10, over a school called Odessa Permian. What an achievement, what a career. In 1977, his son Randy, the second son, Richie's brother, was the running back. They went all the way to the state finals. They lost to Plano, another perennial powerhouse, 15-13. That game was played at Texas Stadium. There were almost 50,000 fans. That remains, even today, they play the state finals now at Cowboy Stadium. That remains the most heavily attended high school football game in the history of the universe. And this man was the head coach of the team that played in the state finals. Later, he coached at Round Rock and then became an athletic director in Pasadena, Texas, in the Houston area. Throughout his career, he didn't have future NFL stars. He took the kids he was given, and he made a team out of them. Doug Etheridge.
I can assure you, I know what 5 minutes is. And you don't know how good it is to see you kids. And I mean that with all sincerity. I had a great time coaching, but God blessed me to put me in Dalhart at the time that I came here. And I really believe that. With as good a group of kids as we had at Dalhart, that worked hard, that did the things you asked them, and you ask them again and again, and they kept doing those things over and over. And somebody fussed at me today about why we ran the plays all the time so much, over and over. Why do you do that? Well, so that you can learn. You know, if you're a slow learner, You have to do things over and over again. Let me tell you, the guys at Dalhart had great attitudes. They did what we asked them to do. They really didn't fuss. They worked hard in the summers. I always felt like that the kids at Dalhart, you kids, kind of set a pattern for what I had to go on the rest of my coaching career. And I really believe that most of the time I had kids just like y'all that worked hard, that listened to your coaches, did what we asked you to do over and over again without fussing, and you learned and you were smart and you did what we wanted you to do. If the ones that we had after I left here in other schools, I kind of used you as a guideline to go by what they did and what my guys at other schools did. And I really believe that you helped me a great deal. And for that, I want to thank you very much, because you were smart and you did play good. And sometimes we have, they say, well, you have to teach them. Sometimes you can teach some things, and I was telling one of the players today, we had a ball game over, I think for a district championship, and they ran a play against us where the quarterback pitched the ball to someone, ran this way. The quarterback came on out this way, like, you leave the quarterbacks alone when he doesn't have the ball. And they threw the pass and completed it the first time. The second time they tried it, one of our cornerbacks named Jeff Colquitt stepped in front of that pass and took it all the way. And so that ended that business. Now I brought Jeff's name up today because Jeff didn't have any scoring plays. Philip and John and Ronnie had all the scoring plays. Jeff was a blocker. And he didn't have any scoring plays, so Jeff had to make plays on his own, kind of like against Crane, when he did that little deal. So anyway, I could mention a lot of guys' names, and I can't, if I start mentioning names and I don't mention all of you, some of you are going to get mentioned later on in some other things. I really do appreciate what you did for me. My family does. I had a good career, and I really attribute a great deal of it to you kids here. Right. And I coached a girls' football powder puff game too here one time. And I asked one of the girls, and I'm going to tell you, the girls did everything I asked them to do. They put their helmet in there, they tackled, and they really took it up. Now, one team had to win. My team lost that day, but I'm going to tell you, they really tackled good, and they did a great job. How many girls were on that powder puff team that we coached here? How many? There you are. They did. Once again, we'll talk some more at the round table, I guess, but thank you very much, you kids.
Okay, we're going to really celebrate. Joel, if you get this, we're going to try. Now, Joel set the stage. The video is really crappy, but you got to look close. This is Dalhart, Denver City 61. We're going to start with the kickoff return where Bird makes the tackle, comes all the way across the field. We're not going to show just a little bit here. All right, let's see if it works. Jones Stadium. Remember, Dalhart, Denver City. We're playing 26th game in a row winner, Denver City, defending state champions. This is the second half kickoff. The Wolves trail 8-7. That's Pat Hubbard of Denver City. And from the opposite side of the field, he's going through there. Here comes, is it Chesterberg? And there he comes, there he comes. He could have gone all the way. Nope, he's tackled right there. 17-yard line. Denver City now runs 7 plays. Took them 3 downs to get a first down. 7 plays into the line. Then on 4th down, they're stopped. The Wolves, the Mad Hatters as they were known, stopped them. Now, first play into the line. Dalhart gets the ball on the 3-yard line, trailing 8-7. And there he goes. Tommy Ledbetter, look in the bottom of your screen. Look, he slips a tackle. The last man's got a shot. Ledbetter into the end zone. Look at the cheerleaders if you can. Dalhart goes on to an incredible 29-8 victory. The biggest victory in Dalhart High School football history right there, ladies and gentlemen. What a game. What a game. All right. Before I call him up there, if we could hit the lights real quick, I want to tell you about Tommy. He gained 1,500 yards that year. He went to play for the Texas Longhorns. I mean, you don't just show up. I mean, that's an incredible to be recruited by Texas. Played on the freshman team. Actually, you couldn't play varsity as a freshman. Then he actually picked up the javelin. He went out for the track team and was a javelin thrower. Just found it interesting and fascinating. He's a great athlete. Decided that Austin, the Longhorns, just too big, so he transferred to UNM, finished up his playing career for the Lobos with Louis Allred, another great Dalhart Wolf from the past. Injuries slowed him down at UNM, but ever since he's had a phenomenal professional career. 37 years he worked in sales for 3M. He lives in Carlsbad, California. He's got a beautiful family, and he also is the possessor of the greatest play, as we've designated the Dalhart, the Decade of Dominance Committee of 2. But we all agree. Oh, wait. You get your plaque tonight, sorry. But you get to come on up now, Tommy Ledbetter. Tommy, you want to say something real quick? All right.
Philip Perkle told me that I could wear my shorts, my flip-flops, and a shirt because I was from California. And I did. And he was supposed to wear a pinstripe suit. All I want to say is
Too close.
Kevin's been calling me for, it's been several months. And the first time he called, there was a question, is this Tommy Ledbetter? And I said, it's Tom Ledbetter. He said, no, I'm looking for Tommy Ledbetter from Dalhart, Texas. And that was beginning of a long conversation and many conversations that Kevin and I had. And he's the reason why I'm here, because he told me so much about what was happening. And I couldn't believe it. And I said, Kevin, and he was 10, 15 years younger than me. I said, did you play football? He said, well, a little bit. And I said, what are you doing this for? And I couldn't believe it. And thanks to Kevin and Joel for doing this, because this is amazing. When I drove up today, and this is kind of how funny it is, thinking about 50 years ago that this all happened. I drove up, and I know we never think we're getting any older, and I looked over and I said, there's some of the parents of some of our kids over here. And then I realized it was us. But I'd like to tell Kevin, thank you very much for all of his communications with me. I tried to tell him that play was really a team play. Thanks to Coach Etheridge and Coach Rickenberg and all the players on that team. I remembered it as not being touched at all by anyone. That I ran through a big hole, and all I did was run, and that was the easiest thing you could do. And everybody else was 100% fulfilling the requirement that they were supposed to do. And that was why we did it over and over, Coach, because we knew someday it was going to be the perfect play at the perfect time, and that was it. Thanks.
Thank you, Tommy. Thank you.
Wow, they don't get any. I mean, Wolves, who's your hero? Is it Tom Brady or something? Tommy Ledbetter is my hero. Wow. And I had to get Tommy, had to get Doug. I mean, everybody's critical, but Tommy was like, I was going to go to California and drag him back here if he wasn't coming. So, now, on this 63 team, now we're flashing forward to 63, because Tommy was 2 years ahead of these guys. Dalhart had an unbelievable staff under Coach Etheridge. On that staff, we've already talked about Greg Etheridge. And Greg Etheridge, Texas High School Hall of Fame coach, went on to extraordinary career. And we have his widow, Jackie, here today. And Jackie, you're getting one of these special edition Dalhart Wolves statues from the 63 season. I'll tell you, because I have spoken to every person that's come back personally, and many times, like Tommy Ledbetter, many times over, I don't know that there's ever been anybody that's a football coach that was more beloved than Greg Sherwood. Just incredible that Victor Chandler from the 63 team is here. He said he remembered everybody's name. He attended every reunion, and he coached in Spearman and Plainview and Liberal. He knew he was just an unbelievable person. Now, also on that 63 team was Artie Stewart. Artie had deep ties to Dalhart. Artie was also the basketball coach, and in that era, if you didn't play football, they really didn't want you to do any other sports, but he turned Dalhart into a decent basketball team. And they were not even almost allowed to play basketball or any other sports in that era. But he did it. And Artie, Coach Young's wife, Dionne Young, who unfortunately could not be here today, and Jeff Lloyd. Artie helped raise 5 Lloyd children whose parents were tragically killed in a vehicle accident in Kansas. They came back to Dalhart, and Artie helped raise them. It's an incredible story. Also on that coaching staff was Jack Probst. He's kind of the forgotten guy. Jack Probst left here, was here a very short time. He was recognized by the Texas legislature for an incredible career in West Texas. He was a superintendent of schools, golf coach, had an unbelievable career. And teaming with Coach Etheridge, these were the coaches. 5 guys did everything, and that included the junior high. And there was one other coach on this team that maybe because he left the state, his exploits were not as well known in the state of Texas, but went on to an incredible career. While Doug Etheridge was going south to Monahans, this individual was going north to Dodge City. And there was no get out of Dodge in him because he's still there. 8 years he served as head coach of the Red Demons. They had 5 league championships, 2 undefeated seasons. They had no Kansas playoffs until 1969. And then in 1970, Dodge City won state in Kansas. It's the only time in history that Dodge City has ever won state in football. And it was this man over here that coached them. That's how incredible this coaching staff was in this tree of what was these 63 players got to enjoy. He became an AD in Dodge City until his retirement. He grew up in Douglas, Oklahoma, where they had no football team. He was a basketball star. He went to junior college and then to Northwestern Oklahoma State, where he was a 3rd-team All-American. He was actually drafted into the NFL by the Chicago Cardinals, but decided to go into coaching. He went to Okeen, Oklahoma, a little town, came to Dalhart because he knew they knew how to play football, and he knew he could learn how to coach in Texas under Doug Etheridge. And then he stayed in Dodge City, went to Dodge City and stayed there. His wife, Dottie, is here. They have 3 children, 8 grandchildren, and even some great-grandchildren. I've lost count, but let's hear it and give it up for J.C. Rickenberg.
Thank you. I want to thank Kevin and Philip and Joel for the great time we've had today, and maybe a little bit later also. Kevin told me today, he said, make sure that you don't go very long. And it hadn't been just today, it was every time I've talked to him. What I would like to do, I came to Dalhart to learn how to coach football. And that's exactly what I got from this man right here, Doug Etheridge. I took the program that we had here into Dodge City and won big time with it. I think he has told everything that I was going to say. But he did prepare me for the job, Doug Etheridge. We had a great bunch of kids here when I came to Dalhart, and all of them were hardworking, coachable type of a kid. And I really appreciated my time that I had in Dalhart, and I hated to leave because we really enjoyed the town. Thank you.
Get back up here, JC. You got at least 3 more minutes. Good job. Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, it's time to meet 63 Wolves. We're going to line them up here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about each player. We've talked about the coaches, and unable to attend. Well, at first, too ill to attend is Roy Weatherford, who lives in Dalhart. Wayne Porter, I got it very briefly. He's a Dalhartan of many years. Wayne Porter, it was so hard I had this roster, wherever it went, with a 63 team. It didn't have what was called the practice players, because the practice players didn't play on the team. In that era, they only had so many seats on the bus, and only so many, and there were players that were so dedicated, they just practiced. And they would suit out for home games, but the playoff games were on the road. And Wayne Porter was a practice player, and that's why he wasn't on the roster. And he was that dedicated, and he was a tremendous inspiration to all of his teammates. He then went down to Texas A&M, became the Aggie yell leader. That's probably more prominent than the Texas governor. And he goes to the football coach, Gene Stallings, at that time. And he said, can I practice with the team, Texas A&M? And he says, oh no, you're too scrawny, you're too little, we can't do it. No way. He went back to Dalhart over the summer. He worked out, he ran. He showed back up in August in the College Station heat and says, please let me practice. Coach said, if you run a mile under 6 minutes, you can practice with us. He stepped out there on the track, ran a 5:43 mile, and practiced with the Texas A&M Aggies, who won the Southwest Conference and beat Bear Bryant and Alabama in the Cotton Bowl. Wow. I mean, so you wonder why these stories, what you learn, what you hear, it's this town, it's unbelievable. And we're all here today to celebrate it. So when you see Wayne cannot be here, figures, missed the bus. No, his mother is having her 95th birthday. The family's gathering all in the Metroplex. He has to be there in Dallas tonight, so that's why he's not here. Okay, and also the unable to attend, Tommy McCarty lives in Indiana, Jim Shipley, California, Lynn Schultz in Rhode Island. I can assure you guys, I hounded these people. I hounded them. I called them. I emailed. One guy, Max Locke, I couldn't find. He's gone under a rock. I sent registered letters. I know he's in Wyoming or South Dakota somewhere, but I never did talk to him, but I found the rest of them. Jim Cockwitz in Washington State. David Moore wanted to come. He's corresponded with me a lot, but he couldn't make it. He's in Houston. Deward Strong, he's a cattle rancher. He told me he's got a herd of cattle coming in. They couldn't come today. And then, I love the managers. The managers are great. You got to have managers for a football team. I had 3 of the 4 that said they were coming, and they all couldn't make it, one reason or another. But they are David Bryant, Hank McIntosh, Pat Gogley, and Curtis Beasley. Those guys were all integral part of the 63 team. So, lining them up, 63 returning Wolves. We're going to start with, and it's kind of funny. All these guys are Billy and Tommy and Bobby. That's how they're listed. That's how we put it on the statue. So I know him as Ricky Allender. Ricky Allender, which is Richard Allender, 152-pound senior guard, lives in Houston. He climbed to the top of the corporate ladder, CEO and president of FARA. He's now president of a yacht company in Houston. And he told me a great story. He said that all the guys on the 63 team as freshmen, Coach Etheridge was taken over as head coach. He gathered them all like in a locker room before the season started, in the locker room. And these guys were all young, scrawny guys. He goes, "This is the team that's going to win state." And they all looked around and go, "What? State? Dalhart?" And he got them believing. So let's give a nice hand for Richard Allen. Next we have Philip Binge, 142-pound junior halfback at that time. He was a football coach and teacher in Clayton for 30 years. He now test drives tires. Drives all over the country. He lives in San Angelo with his wife Babs, and Babs is very well connected and keeps track of everybody from her class and her era. So let's hear from Philip Binge. Now we have Richard Bohr, but of course then he's Ricky. Ricky's a 144-pound junior center. Now I'm presuming all these guys are here. There may be 1 or 2 that somehow didn't make it, but come on up. I didn't get to meet everybody before. Remember, all these guys, I knew them by name. Joel and I really, my brother Craig, who's here, was in that era, but I didn't know these guys. I just know their names, but I knew everybody's name. And anyway, Ricky was in the Air Force, a contractor, an art gallery co-owner, lives in Clear Lake Shores, Houston. He is a luxury car and yacht broker as well. 2 guys out of the first 3 I introduced are in the yacht business. How about that? He said, after living in Phoenix, LA, and Houston, it's easy to realize the value of growing up in a small town like Dalhart. Ricky Bohr. Bobby Brown, are you here? Bobby Brown. Come on up, Bobby. 137-pound junior center. He worked on ranches in Montana and Wyoming. He now lives in Amarillo. Welcome back, Bobby Brown. Thank you, Bobby. Now here's a guy that's been a godsend in Dalhart, Victor Chandler, 165-pound senior guard. Victor spent a career in the Air Force, 20 years, worked 21 years for the Dalhart Highway Department, now known as TxDOT. He has been so helpful in this process, and I could not have done it without him. Next is Dwight Clifton. Did the legendary Dwight Clifton make it back? Yes, sir. The kicker, we don't know if it's right, if it's left, or down the middle. Now, that was the year before, but Dwight was a senior, 205-pound kicker and end on the team, and he was an ag teacher in Dalhart, Cumbie, and Cleburne, and living still in Cleburne, right, Dwight? Yeah. All right. Welcome back to Dalhart. And now we have, as Coach Etheridge listed him, the aforementioned Jeff Colquitt. Jeff Colquitt, a dentist in Dalhart for a number of years. Now he's a dentist in Dallas. And it's funny, Coach Etheridge, all these thousands and thousands of plays he's watched, and you know how Jeff had to create his own way? In the old, the people who were there might remember this. It was against Crane. Crane had a short punt. All the cranes, as they're called, gathered around this, and the ball is a dead duck. It's dying. And out of nowhere, Jeff Colquitt comes swooping in like a stork stealing an egg or something and runs it into the end zone. He went right past all those guys. It was one of the greatest plays in Dalhart High School history. Jeff Colquitt. Jeff, his brother Jim, as I said, was unable to be here, but his other brother, the twin, John Cochran. John, come on up. 148-pound senior halfback. Boy, John looks like he could suit out today, doesn't he, huh? Gained 1,300 yards, sixth most in the state. He's been a businessman all his career and decided, all right, I'll go out and work at the airport. He works for TSA in Amarillo, so. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. So you don't want me to talk more than 5 minutes about your exploits. Okay. And I tell you, I want to say a special shout out to the mother of 3 players on this team, Margaret Cochran. Lovely lady. My brother Craig, of everybody coming back, he says, I've got to say hi to Margaret. I love that woman. She's like a second mother. Okay, next up is Bobby Cunningham, 130-pound junior quarterback. Come on up, Bobby. Now, among the great mysteries of 1963, you have a playoff roster with guys that apparently were not necessarily suited up or ready to play. I guess you created a roster of players that were available to you. Bobby was a junior at that time, a quarterback, was a great passer, and unfortunately Doug Etheridge and the crew, they weren't much into the passing game, but the next year he showed his exploits as a passer. And his father, of course, was the legendary Dalhart physician, Dr. John Cunningham. He's a pharmacist, owns his own pharmacy in Lubbock, Bobby Cunningham. And of course, the brother of Bill Cunningham, Jimmy Hyso. Jimmy, you out there? One of my favorite towns. Jimmy's from Trinidad, Colorado. 148-pound senior end, worked for the railroad with Ronnie McClendon. These guys have been semi-attached at the hip all these years because Ronnie also retired to Trinidad. And Jimmy, so great to have you back in Dalhart. Another Dalhart native, Lynn Hariff. Lynn Hariff, 164-pound senior guard. Lynn did a lot of things in his career. He worked out in California in a water district as an underwater diver and did valve maintenance. And come on up here, Lynn, good seeing you. Then he returned to Dalhart. He's been a rancher. He's even a Civil Air Patrol pilot. So thank you so much. Great to see you, Lynn Hariff. Jimmy Kelly. Jimmy Kelly, did Jimmy make it? Jimmy is here. Okay. Among all the guys, this one ranks right up there, second or third hardest to find. But we found him. Now, Jimmy is out in, Logan, New Mexico, right? He's been a rancher. He was a 157-pound junior guard. And Jimmy, we are very, very thankful that you're back with us. Good to see you. Now we have Chester Latham. He's another one of these guys that made it different. 145-pound senior, Dalhart native. Chester was, again, I had a playoff roster to work with, and Chester was injured almost the whole season. So only late in the game did I find out he was on the team. I did the best I could. I'm sorry, Chester. You're fully and absolutely on the team. You actually played in the Rockwall game late in the year. He's been a real estate broker in Phoenix. He's now back in Dalhart farming. And it's great to see you, Chester Latham. Now the quarterback, Ronnie McClendon, 169-pound senior. Ronnie Mac, as they call him. As a sophomore and a junior, he played all positions. The quarterback that had been with these guys through junior high, a guy named Larry Atkinson, who was a great quarterback, he moved. His dad got transferred. And the coaches called on Ronnie Mac before the senior season, said, would you be our quarterback? And not only was he a great quarterback, he led the Wolves to the greatest season in Dalhart history. He's been a conductor with Rock Island, worked for the railroad, retired in Trinidad, Colorado. Ronnie McClendon. Burton McElroy, you've already met. Burton, come on up. I will say this story about Burton. When Greg Sherwood was honored and admitted into the Texas High School Hall of Fame, of course, he thanked his wife and all those in attendance that had won, but he pointed out one person, a room, a lot more people than this, and he pointed to Burton McElroy, this 132-pound down lineman, and said he has a big heart. He played his heart out, and that's the way the Dalhart Wolves have had the success that they've had. Burton, welcome back to Dalhart. We're going to hear from Phil Perkle shortly, but Phil, of course, with United Supermarkets, Senior VP. No, we're going to hear, not yet. You just hang in there, Phil. Phil he's been a coach. He's got his MBA. He's a recruiter for a refinery, a banker, a leadership trainer. He's had an incredible career. And Phil Perkle, stand up, but we're going to make you speak in just a little bit. Congratulations, Phil Perkle. And then we have Richard Pinner, 186-pound junior center. By the way, Perkle was a 149-pound fullback at the time. Pinner lives in Garland. He's one of our sponsors of our event. He's a lighting engineer, cable manufacturer. He started Pinner Wire and Cable. They build wire harnesses in Garland. And we are so glad and thankful to have you back, Richard. Welcome back. Now, Frank Quintana. Did Frank make it here? Is Frank Quintana here? Yes! Yes! This was the hardest guy to find. I cannot tell you how many phone calls, dead ends, social media, everything. We could not find this guy. And finally, this was 2 weeks out. I'm looking for him for a year. And Victor Chandler said, well, I thought he was up in Boise City. Well, he wasn't. But he was in Oklahoma, so I expanded the universe to another state. And we found him in Goodwill, Oklahoma. And it's Frank Quintana, 136-pound junior guard. Frank had a sandwich shop that he operated. He's been a carpenter, wife and kids. He had apparently lost touch, but no longer. Frank Quintana, welcome back to the Dalhart Wolves in 1963. Nothing makes me prouder. I'm not kidding you, hours after hours to find this guy. I'm so glad to have you here, Frank. All right, Glenn Robertson, 186-pound senior guard. Glenn, come up just for a brief, shake everybody's hand or say hi. Now, Glenn, we're going to hear from in a minute. So I'm going to save most of the words for Glenn for a little bit later. Pete Scardella, 155-pound senior quarterback. Pete, come on up. Long-standing ties to Dalhart. TCU graduate, a retired tax partner from Phoenix. He was actually chairman of the 1987 Phoenix Opens. This guy knows some pro golfers, tell you what. That's a very great accomplishment. Pete, welcome back to Dalhart. Then we got Jimmy Shepard. Jimmy Shepard, one of 3 Shepard brothers that I remember in Dalhart, 162-pound junior fullback. Jimmy, I used to run in. I lived in San Antonio a couple of years. Jimmy, 36 years a court reporter in San Antonio. He's married 49 years to former Dalhart twirler Shirley. Jimmy Shepard, welcome home. And somewhere, I believe he made it, Crandall Young, the principal of Dalhart High School and later superintendent. Crandall, are you here? Come on up, Crandall Young. Crandall, you as well, because the players are going to get their, the players and coaches get their statues, but you get your statue here. Crandall lives down in El Paso with me, so he's a good man. He works for the city of El Paso still. He had an incredible career in education. Crandall, would you... all that. Congratulations, Crandall Young. Hey, and what is a reunion without a pretty girl? I am told that the 1963 homecoming queen is out there. Susan Langhorne, are you out there anywhere? Yes. Where are you? Right there. 1963 homecoming queen. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a wonderful round of applause to the returning 1963 Dalhart Wolves. All right. Doc Rowell took over as head coach at the age of 25 in 1969. He grew up in Odessa. He was a middle linebacker at West Texas State under Joe Kerbel. He played in the 1962 Sun Bowl. And then he came to Dalhart after 1 year at White Deer. He won district the first year. In 1970, he had the great team that Joel talked about. In 73, he had another district title. He finished with a record at Dalhart of 13, 21, and 2. And with his wife, Mary, they went to Goliad, Alpine, Divine, Coahoma, Westbrook outside of Midland. Then he's retired in Midland. And I like what he says. He says, every day is now a Saturday. Let's welcome back Doc Rowell.
It's going to be very short because my wife already informed me that the reception for the coaches' wives started 5 minutes ago at St. Anthony's Catholic Church. And so get up there and shut up and get it done. That's what she told me. You know, I made a promise to her on June the 4th, 1975. We drove out of here for the last time. And she bawled and cried down past the Interstate 20, past Abilene, going south to San Angelo. She cried all the way, and I told her, I said, don't do that. I'll take you back. I did. Yesterday was the first time we've been back, 37 years ago. I said, I told you I keep my promises. She said, yeah, Wasn't too happy. I'd like to say a big thank you to Kevin and Joel and all you sponsors that helped us come along. You know, these kinds of things come along in other communities, and people say, you know, we ought to do this, we ought to do that, and we need to honor this group or that group. And it never gets done because you don't have a Joel Hogue or a Kevin Lovell. That gets behind it and pushes it and makes it happen and has the tenacity to go out and get sponsors and help it. You know, I coached in a number of different places, and the thing was that they always asked me, what's the difference in our kids here and where you coached? And, you know, Dalhart, it was the epitome. There's so many things that we took with us, like Doug said earlier, to other programs that carried on. You know, the carrying of the helmets, you know, the singing of the school song after the ball game, and the pack up. The wolf pack coming in and leaving, you know, and that's very difficult for the other team on the other side to see 40 guys packed in a little ball coming out there and fixing to explode on their rear ends out there. And it works, and it's a mind deal, and it does a good job. We've already seen what Doug's assistant coaches were, and they were excellent. And I was talking to Boston last night, and no head coach does it. It's the people working for him that does it and gets it done. And I was very fortunate. Kevin said I was 25 years old. Yeah, I was 25 years old. I was fearless. You know, when Mr. Bateman offered me the job, he said, I don't guess you want it, do you? And I said, yes, I do. He said, you know you'll be gone in December if you don't win. I said, that's why I've got a mobile home. And fortunately, you know, I was 25 years old, and I took the job, and that night I didn't sleep a wink because I said, what have I done? There's so much I don't know. But I had some men, Jack Boston, Tommy Sherrill, Wiley Malden, Ricky Nix, Earl Smith, Robert Criswell, Williams, all these guys, Ricky Nix, they took me by the hand and led me through the minefield and kept me from exploding, from being too courageous and, you know, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. No, they'd say, I don't think I'd do it that way. You're right, we don't need to do it that way. Okay. And I'm like Doug also, I hate to mention any names of the the kids that played for me, because they're so outstanding. And I remember when I was coaching at down at Goliad, I got a phone call from Dr. Abdullah, who was on the school board at the time here. And he was asking me some questions about coaches and things, and he said, why is it that coaches want to stay around in Dalhart? And I said, it's because of the kids, because you have super kids. They have the greatest work ethic of anybody around, and it hasn't changed to any number of schools that I went to. They, and I was told when I became a head coach, I said, well, I wonder what we're going to run on offense. They said, just call any 3-digit number, they can run it. And I found out that's true. Even third graders, you just call out any 3-digit number and they go. If it's a 300 series, it's going to be the trap series, and they go on, And we continued it on, and this is a contributing to Doug and his staff. We just carried on what Sherwood had already put in, and Sherwood followed what he had learned through Doug, and we just continued to do it. Each one of us had a little bit of wrinkle. I put some wrinkles in it, a little bit more wide open, talking about that pass that Colquitt picked off and go. No, we didn't get it picked off, but we did have some. But I had some super young gentlemen that played for me that I don't ever forget. I had one that was always talking all the time, and I think he's going to talk in a little bit. His name is Celso Ramirez. And I was telling him a while ago, and his daughter, the maddest I ever got at Celso was down at Boys Ranch at a track meet on a Friday. And we were getting ready to run the sprint relay to qualify for the finals on Saturday. And he jumps twice and gets our team eliminated. And I asked him, I said, who jumps on a sprint relay? I said, why'd you do that? He said, the Final Four of March Madness is tomorrow, Coach, and I want to see it. Very, I couldn't argue. I wanted to see it. I said, well, we're all going to get to see it now. All right. And then also, Celso, he had the opportunity to set the record for the Panhandle for scoring that had been set a couple of years earlier from a young man in Clarendon. And the team loves Celso so much that Jamie Beaver, he broke for a long run and stepped out on about the 4-yard line so Celso could score. And I said, okay, that's the way you want it, we're going to do it. Okay, we call the play. Celso goes, and he steps out on the 2. I said, Celso, what are you doing? He said, I'm not going to do that. And I said, no, these guys are doing it so you can score. Okay, so he finally scored the next play, and he got the record and everything. But that was the unselfishness of that ball club of wanting Celso to be successful. And we had numerous students like that. They were great. We had a great coaching staff that took care of me and my wife. If I mess up on my English, it's the English teacher's fault. If y'all find any, I've gotten a lot better. I used to couldn't talk at all, so I can at least say a few words now. But thank you. That's my 5 minutes, and I'm late to the coaches' wives' reception. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Al. We're going to honor these guys tonight. I think in the effort of time, I want the returning assistant coaches just to stand where you are. We're going to applaud you, and then tonight you do come up here and get a cap and also the supplement when we're done. But just Jack Boston, athletic director. Jack, where are you? Welcome back. Tommy Sherrill went on to become Dalhart's head coach. Wiley Malden in from Lubbock. Wiley turned my 9th grade class into winners. That was not easy to do. And Ricky Nix from Amarillo. Ricky Nix. Good to see you, Ricky. Back in the days when I had hair, I was in my sophomore year, I quit the basketball team because he told me to cut my hair and I was too stubborn. The next year I cut it. I cut it and I played. So, all right. Dalhart is had so much history, as you know, and I want to pause briefly. We have not on the program, but in junior high, Brian is here, right? Brian Hall, are you here? I just want to make sure. Yes. And going in his 9th grade year, he got his right foot trapped in a mechanical sprinkler system. He lost his right foot. In 1969, he was a manager for the Dalhart Wolves. He started practicing as a kicker, and in 70 and 71, he received statewide headlines as the Dalhart Wolves kicker. Hall walked on at Texas Tech. He kicked on the freshman team, redshirted, then kicked for the Red Raiders as a sophomore, junior, and senior, earning a scholarship, national attention, bringing fame to Dalhart, Texas. He played on a Southwest Conference championship team. He's a successful Dallas businessman, and tonight we're going to honor him with a Special Achievement Award. Brian, come up real quick and say hi.
You know, I think this thing could go a little bit faster if Kevin would just get a little bit more enthusiastic about things. It's been a long time, and it's been a long while since I've been back, and I'll see a lot of familiar faces, and thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And I do just want to say one small thing before I leave. You know, the man that fired me as a manager hired me as a kicker. Coach Ralph, thank you so much. He, you know, you could have, I suspect that he probably went home and said, you know, I'm the head coach. I don't know about our possibilities. We got a kid that I've never seen kick. He's going to kick, and he's got his foot cut off because he didn't have sense enough to stay off of a sprinkler system. So you took a lot of chances. Thank you. But then when I got to Texas Tech, I love football so much. But if it hadn't been for Celso Ramirez, I would have never played at Texas Tech. He vouched for me, he introduced me to the coaches, and he gave me the opportunity that probably much defined my life. Celso, thank you. Good man. And one last thing about Celso, if you ever wondered why he didn't play running back at Texas Tech, it's very simple. None of the running backs could play defensive back like he could. He could do it all. Celso, thank you very much for everything. And thank you, Dalhart citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
And speaking of Celso Ramirez, Celso's going to get a special award tonight as well. And Celso lives down in down in Lubbock. I still have Phillips on my mind. That 1970 game is anyone that was in this room and saw it's the most heartbreaking loss of all time. That one and maybe the 1972 U.S. Olympic basketball team. It was that bad. It was just one of those you can never overcome because we had such a great team. But Celso, you set the all-time Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame football scoring record for a single season. He was named the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame Football Player of the Year. He went to Texas Tech over a number of schools. And, you know, Celso and Brian are the last two high school athletes from Dalhart High School to play in what is now Division I NCAA football team. It's been that long. We had a young man, Cadenhead, who played 80-81 for West Texas State, which is not Division I. Celso Ramirez.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you. And as Coach Rao knows, that's probably about all I'd say. I'll turn around and walk on. But I'd like to thank some people, especially the community of Dalhart. But I want my parents and my family to stand up. I want to thank you for everything you've done for me over the years. They still live here in Dalhart. They've been here 80 years. They lived in here all their lives. Thank you very much for supporting me over the years. The other person I want to thank is Coach Etheridge. Probably doesn't really realize I was a little kid and I was looking up to all these men over here, about 10 years old, and I'm going like, you know, when I grow up, just like most little kids, I want to be like them. I want to do some things that they've done. And so they gave me kind of the inspiration to do some of the things that I've done. So I want to thank them, you know, for leading the way, setting the path for me. And then I want to thank all my coaches, all of them. They did a great job, you know, like it's like he said, all they had to do was ask us, and we would do it. That's all they had to ask me. Next thing I want to do is thank all my teammates. You know, a record like that, I can remember a sports writer from Amarillo calling me, and he was interviewing me on the telephone, and he was asking me, and I said, well, you know, really, to do anything like that, it takes a team effort. And it's true what Coach Rao was saying. My teammates, you know, they put forth the effort, and that we did it together. So I consider it more of a team thing than an individual thing. And I'll accept this on behalf of all of them. And the next thing I want to thank is, you know, like when Coach Etheridge came here, I was a little kid and I was looking and I said, gosh, you know, he's good about building up the fans, the community, the student body. He got everybody involved. And that's the things that my dad, he would tell me. He said, he's a smart man. He gets everybody involved. He wants them to know. That way we can all pull together. Because one person, you know, is just one person. But together, we accomplished quite a bit. So thank you very much, community of Dalhart.
You know, there's so many inspirational stories of the 63, but I tell you, when you all have seen or will see or read this supplement, and Joel and I obviously have no life. We wrote article after article, research after research. That's all we did for the last year. However, there was one other contribution. There was an individual named Glenn Robertson, who's here, who corresponded with me, and then without me asking, he wrote the most beautiful essay. And if you haven't read it, you have got to read that essay in this supplement, where he talked about the times in Dalhart and the rituals and his teammates and the coaches. And Glenn has gone on to an unbelievable professional career. He's got a PhD. He's a noted historian. He teaches at the University of Oklahoma. He's managed an investment company. He's been extraordinarily successful, and it's largely because of the roots that he established and what happened here in Dalhart to him. But I want to read one short excerpt from this essay. He said, of the coaches, I love these men who coached us. Even at today, and it's going to be very hard not to break up here. Even today, at the age of 66, I keep a picture of each one in my head. They are human beings with shortcomings. They cared about us, not just as football players, but also about our minds and our souls. On more than one occasion in my life, I have drawn on what they taught me and on what they told me I could be. They taught us to be men. We were young once, but no more. We will be Dalhart Wolves forever. Glenn Roberts.
Actually, I'm just looking for the men's rooms. Anyone know? We've been here so long, I kept wondering, where am I? But, and I know it's not here, but no, I've told Kevin any number of times that he doesn't. Be here in this room again, and not just with the football players. I just had lunch with 7 of the most gorgeous women that were my classmates, and it was worth the trip from Norman to come to do that. But I was almost not here today. I almost didn't. Well, not because I had something better to do or because of some family tragedy, but I feel now I can confess this, and only 4 people in this audience know this, but I quit when I was a sophomore. It happened after the first Monday morning of my introduction to what Doug Etheridge called two-a-days. And in those days, there was no helmet and shorts and that kind of, I mean, it was full gear and it was one-on-one the first day, and you just went at it. And I remember I was lying on my back and I hurt. I just hurt. And I had a headache, and I thought, I love football, but it's not worth this. It's not, I just, I'll go march in the band or do something, but I'm not going to that afternoon practice. And I said, I quit. And there, as I say, there are 3 other guys in this audience that know this story because they were part of it too. Well, at 5:30, I'm sitting in front of my locker wearing a t-shirt that smelled like the last person to wear it was a corpse, and a pair of socks that were so wet from my sweat the morning that they still squished. Finally, someone taught me, you fool, wring them out after that, you know. Yeah, and I went on to get a PhD. How do you figure that, kid? But you have to be smarter than socks. And I had some other equipment on that I won't mention, but it felt like someone had thrown it in the ice bucket after the first. Okay. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, what in the world am I doing here? I quit. I had a wonderful afternoon. And here I am. And I began looking around the dressing room. And there were people like Bill Cunningham, and there were people like Tommy Ledbetter, and people like Jimmy Stanley, who may have been the greatest Dalhart Wolf of all. And I remembered why I didn't quit. Because as much as I dreaded that afternoon practice, and it lived up to all my expectations, the thought of not being with these guys was even worse. These guys meant a lot to me. Tommy Ledbetter and I are pretty good friends, but in some ways, yeah, he is my idol. He is a guy that I'm proud to have associated with. And that run, I mean, that was great. What was that, 2:45 or something? I know it had to be couldn't have been that. What would that been? Anyway. But the guys who blocked for him, they were all our friends, and we all hung together, and we all thought we treated each other well. And while we're speaking about two-a-days, I want to thank you all for those generous 10-minute ice breaks we used to get. God darn, wasn't that? They'd bring out an ice bucket. You know, it's 100 degrees out here in Dalhart, Texas in August, and Rickenberg used to stand by the ice bucket, and he'd say, not too much, boys, not too much, boys, you know. You old softies, I tell you. Anyway, but so I appreciate the guys that were in that dressing room, because they were there then. I get to be here now. And I think there are a lot of guys who would be willing to say the same thing. Plus the fact, I got to thinking about it, I was trying to conjure up the scenario where I'd go tell Coach, I'm quitting. I'm going to give you my stuff. And that frightened me worse than the afternoon ride, didn't it? Because he'd have made me look right in his eyes. And he said, "What are you talking about?" I think. And I think he'd say, "Clint, get back in there and get you're not quitting. What in the hell are you talking about? Quit," you know? I hope that's what he would have said. And anyway, so it's fitting that I met Philip Perkle on the football field. It was in the 7th grade, and I had gotten that obligatory letter where it says, "Welcome to Dalhart football, and so that you'll be ready for the coming season, you should go out and run 4 times around the track, and you should run 500s, and you should run 10 50s, and this sort of thing." So naive me, I thought they meant it. So I went out there and my first day, and I ran around the track and everything. There was 2 other guys out there. Finally, got a little uncomfortable, so I thought, well, I'll walk over and introduce myself. And I walked over, and this guy that had Buddy Holly glasses on, I mean, they were black. He said, "Hi, I'm Phil Perkle." I said, "Hi, I'm Glenn Robertson." And he said, "And this is my cousin, Johnny Cloud." And now Johnny Cloud was like meeting Elvis to me, because he'd been a Dalhart Wolf, you know, and that's how I was. But anyway, and it was later on when Perkle and I got where we were running together that first, and he said something to me he said, "I want to be like Johnny." I don't know what being like Johnny meant, but I was beginning to find out what it was like to be Philip Perkle. Because on that sheet where it said to run 500s, well, he'd run 6. And when it said to run 850s, he'd run 9 of them. And of course, I had to run it too. I went like a fool. But I remember thinking, I think Perkle's going to be a pretty good guy, but the poor guy can't read. I mean, and then school started in the 7th grade, and we practiced, from 1 to 2 in the afternoons, I can't remember, because we had to go back and then have class after we were quitting, all smell like goats. And so one day after school, about in the first week, I'm walking home, and I just happened to walk by the football field, and there's the 8th grade over there practicing, and I thought, I wonder what the 8th grade does that we don't do. And so I walked over there, and I got my hands on the fence, looking through there, and say, yeah, there's McCleskey, and there's Cunningham, and there's George Pepper, and there's Phil Perkle, and then Perkle? What's Perkle doing out? And I said a lot of old hickory nuts after that, because I thought, is he been promoted? I mean, yeah, he's a pretty good football player, but is he going to play for the 8th grade team? I mean, I couldn't. So the next morning, his first chance I saw him in the hallway, and I said, Perkle, word is you're practicing with the 8th grade team. Yeah, I went and asked the coaches if they minded if I practiced with the 8th grade team. And I'm thinking, not only can he not read, he's now self-imposed 2-a-days on himself in the 7th grade. Well, who would want to do that? Until 3 days later, I was out there too. And pretty soon the word came around that Perkle and Robertson are out practicing with the 8th grade, and others began to come, and that's when it started. Y'all want to know? That's when it started. We didn't win a game our 7th grade year, but we were there. And so on a team that never had leadership problems. I mean, you don't play with John and Jeff Cockwood and Dwight and Ronnie McClendon and Victor and Carl McEnroe, and you don't play with these guys and ever worry about where your leadership's going to come from. But the heart and soul of that team, I believe then, and I believe this day, was Philip Perkle. And so, Perkle, I want to thank you publicly for my teacher and my friend and my teammate, Philip Perkle. Thank you all.
You know, his parting words was, "Can we take a bathroom break?" I got to come down here. I don't operate very good behind the podium. Plus, you can't see me with the podium.
Now, Phil, I want to say one thing. For posterity's sake, your audio is not going to be very good on that DVD unless you stand up here. But that's okay. I'm just letting you know. All right.
Well, it won't take me long. You know, I'm an old history guy too, but the thing I liked was the homecoming queen kicking off. Susan, you got a new role, babe. The 1968 edition of Texas Football Magazine had a cover price of $1. The picture on the cover was Texas A&M quarterback Ed Hargett, and the caption underneath read, "Texas A&M's cool Ed Hargett puts the knife in Alabama." And the feature story in the college section was about that great Texas A&M victory, Gene Stallings, a student of Bear Bryant, in their win over Alabama in the Cotton Bowl. They had a special edition they called the 5-Year Schoolboy Champions. And the leading paragraph read something like this. As any Pennsylvanian knows, the world's best high school football is played in the state of Texas. No question. Then the next question is, so, given that, who is the best team in the state of Texas? Not over one season, but over a span of 5 seasons. If your answer was Plano, Dumas, Amarillo, Tascosa, Keller, Clifton, those would all be great answers. However, the winningest team in the state of Texas over the last 5 years are the Dalhart Wolves. Dalhart, a town that calls Billings, Montana, a closer neighbor than Houston, Texas, a town known for early frost and coldest weather. But if winning football games is your dish, then the Dalhart Wolves are the ones that you want to look at. 1961 started that out, and when I reflect back on those days, the thing that comes to my mind, first of all, is leadership. Certainly we've seen Hall of Fame coaches are great leaders, and Texas, Dalhart, Texas, has had the best. You think about our coaches during those years, what AA town could ever have that? So leadership. As a sophomore in 61, certainly the senior leadership of that team, Coach. You know, the Gowns, the Ledbetters, the names we've already talked about, Beast, Larry Melton, and of course Chester Bird. You know, when Kevin called me and he said, what play would you call the greatest play in Dalhart history? And I said, well, you know, everybody's going to say Ledbetter's run, and certainly that was it. But I vote for Chester Bird. He's the guy that set Ledbetter up, you know. So the senior leadership was really the deal. And what leadership is positive influence. Stephen Covey wrote a famous book called 7 Habits of Effective Leaders. And he had a metaphor he called emotional bank account. And he likened our emotions, how we feel about things, like a bank account. That if you make deposits in a financial bank account, you're going to stay solvent. And one of the things that we know about great leaders is they make deposits into how we feel. They build us up, they empower us, they make us believe we can do things that we never thought we could do. They enable us. When I think about Dalhart, you think about all the leadership that we have, not only in the schools, but in the community and across the board. Positive leadership. March 20, 1999. I'm standing in the foyer of the Texas Football Hall of Fame. The day is the induction of Greg Sherwood into the hall. Coach Etheridge has been inducted in 1997, and several of us are standing in the foyer getting ready for the press conference where they're going to introduce the inductees. We're standing in a little circle and we're talking. Bill, come up here and help me on this. So we're standing in the foyer, and I'm standing here where Bill is. Coach Etheridge is standing where I am. Standing next to me over here is Greg Sherwood. He's getting ready to be inducted into the Texas Hall of Fame. Next to him is James Street, great Texas quarterback. He's getting ready to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Next to him is Gary Kubiak, Texans head coach. Then he was offensive coordinator at the Broncos. He's getting ready to be inducted in the Hall of Fame. Standing next to him is Gordon Wood, at that time the winningest football coach in the state of Texas. And then Forrest Gregg is standing there, and already inductee. So I'm standing there and we're visiting, and I'm telling you, I'm keeping my mouth shut and I'm listening. There was a pause in the conversation, and Coach Etheridge did this. He put his hand on my shoulder and he leaned into this group and he said, "This was my fullback at Dalhart. And I want to tell you something. He was a good one." How do you think I felt? Suit me up. But here's the deal. All Coach Etheridge had to do was this. We were ready to roll. We talked about looking him in the eye. We were ready to go. Positive leadership. And when I think back and when I reflect back on those days, community-wide, school administration-wide, coaches, senior leadership across the board, that makes the difference. And I want to tell you something. That sustains you over a long period of time. It's not a flash in the pan. So Dickie, Glenn, stand up. We're getting ready to go to the bathroom, buddy.
I didn't even play with these guys. I didn't even play football. But this event, what I've done, is one of the most important things I will ever do in my whole life. And I brought my beautiful daughter Sabine. She's in Atlanta. She is going to be a surgeon. She's a resident. And I said, my wife, bless her heart, her mother's in Slovakia, and her mother's ailing, and she had to be in Slovakia, couldn't come. My other daughter's very busy with medical practice in California. I had to have some level representation in addition to my brother, so I brought my daughter here and pulled her out of residency for one of the most important things I'll ever do in my lifetime, because these guys had to be honored. 1960s in Dalhart, Texas, had to be remembered. As I wrote in the supplement, it was a time of almost exclusively nuclear families and hardworking people raising good kids who went on to make something of themselves. And you know what? Coming back to Dalhart, which I seldom visit, a lot of people from out of town, a lot of people that live here. This town looks great. I mean, I've never seen it. Of course, it's had a little rain. The streets are clean. It just, everybody in this room has a tie to Dalhart, Texas, and that's what we're celebrating. We're celebrating the days of our youth. We're celebrating our heroes of the past, and it had to be done. So tonight, it's going to be very special as well. I think almost all of you are going to be there. Let me run through the items that we have coming up. We have we'll have a little bit of tea and coffee and maybe some cookies over at St. James Episcopal Church. 4 o'clock, please make your way to Dalhart High School, where we're going to have the round table, some great stories. Then please partake of the Band Boosters food. And then get over to Dalhart High, to the stadium, beautiful new stadium, where we're going to cheer on the Wolves, and they're going to give it their all. And one thing about Dalhart, it has the greatest fight song and the greatest school song of anybody. And the way the school song is done at the end of the game, it's always brought a tear to my eye. And we're going to invite, Coach Young has invited all of the 63 team and the 63 players, plus any of the Decade of Dominance players like Brian and Celso, any other football players from 61 to 70, or coaches, coach, like Boston and Malden and Nix and all you guys, you've got to onto the field. So hustle down there as they shake hands with the Bushland Falcons. Then we're going to turn, and you're going to have the greatest collection of football players in Dalhart history, the present with the past, intermingling for the school song. Now, one thing I warn you about, it's the only thing I don't like, small little detail about Dalhart. They changed the very end of the school song. Since old, and it's okay, it's good, it's upbeat, but nobody likes change. So the last frame or stanza, it goes faster, but it's still beautiful. But in honor of 1963 and the Decade of Dominance, we're all going to stand now, and we have recorded the Dalhart school song. What? Not yet. Courtesy of Jack King. Jack and Rebecca King, 1970. Stand up, please. The band director, Rebecca. Joel Hogue was a freshman on this band. I wasn't even in the band, so I had nothing to do with it. But you're going to hear that, and then you're going to hear the fight song as we exit the building. I tell you what, it's a day that none of us will ever forget. And tonight, it's Go Wolves. Right now, please, everybody stand. Let's sing the alma mater.